Hi, folks. Welcome to Crisco's Corner. Hi, folks. Welcome back. And those of you that are new, welcome. This is a piece that was on Tucker Carlson the other night concerning the anniversary, second anniversary of the January 6th Capitol riots, what the Democrats refer to as the insurrection, and the deaths that occurred. Well, there was only one death. A 14-year Air Force veteran, Ashley Babbitt, and how the Democrats have taken this and made it into a propaganda piece, and that 5 Capitol officers died in protecting us and doing their duty and blah, 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 which is a lie. Those of you that think this is something new, prior to the American Revolution, the so-called Boston Massacre wasn't really a massacre. That was a lie. If you all remember, John Adams was the lawyer that defended the British soldiers that opened fire. It was not a massacre by any means, but the rebels used that as propaganda, rebels being Americans, to fuel the fire for revolution and independence. So this is nothing new. This isn't even a party thing, a Democrat-Republican thing. It's what the victors do. The victors get to write history. Now, let's listen a little bit from the Tucker piece, and we'll comment from there.
First, an anniversary. 2 years ago today, a Capitol Hill police officer called Michael Byrd shot an unarmed woman in the neck. At the time of that killing, Byrd had a documented history of gross negligence with a firearm. He left a loaded Glock pistol in a public men's room at the Capitol, which for a law enforcement official is a firing offense. But for some reason, Michael Byrd was still in the force that day. The woman he killed was called Ashley Babbitt. Babbitt was a married 14-year veteran of the U.S. military. She ran a pool cleaning company with her husband in San Diego. Physically, she was tiny. She was also unarmed. Michael Byrd later admitted he had no indication at all that Babbitt was carrying a weapon. She posed no visible threat. He killed her anyway. Under normal circumstances, Byrd would have been fired immediately and charged with murder, which he clearly committed. But that's not what happened. After doing essentially no investigation into the shooting, Nancy Pelosi's congressional police force declared Byrd a national hero, and the media strongly agreed. Byrd went on television to accept accolades and to complain about racism. He was never punished for killing Ashley Babbitt. He was rewarded for it.
Now let's for a moment think. Let's do a little what if. Say this is a BLM protest. 99.999% of the people that came that day protested peacefully. That more than qualifies as their so-called peaceful protest. But say things were reversed. Say Ashley Babbitt was a BLM protester, and that Capitol officer was white and she was black. They would make her out the hero of the century. They would rename schools after her. They would put up statues. There'd be millions of people riding in the streets. Yet what happens is nothing. Nothing happens because the victors write history, not actually what history is. Let's listen on.
Ashley Babbitt's mother, meanwhile, got a very different sort of treatment. Babbitt's mother was arrested today in Washington by the Capitol Police. Her crime? Trying to hold a memorial service for her daughter. 2 years later, it's clear that Ashley Babbitt her death is by far the most significant thing that happened at the U.S. Capitol building that day. But at the same time, it is the least talked about event of January 6th. Why is that? Well, because the facts about what actually happened on January 6th disrupt the lies, what they've told you happened on January 6th. And those lies have proven very useful to the Biden administration and to permanent Washington. On the basis of a wholly created myth about what happened that day, the Biden Pentagon conducted an unprecedented political purge of the entire U.S. military. The FBI and various intel agencies increased their control over the American media. And most obviously, the DOJ has been allowed to prosecute and jail hundreds of nonviolent political protesters whose crime was having the wrong opinions. Lies about January 6th, which have been relentless, have enabled some of the most unscrupulous people in our country to make a mockery of our Bill of Rights and to steal our core freedoms. So they can't talk about Ashley Babbitt. Talking about Ashley Babbitt makes it very clear who the real culprits are and who the real threats to this country continue to be. And they're not the January 6th protesters.
Now, let's think about that for a moment. Let's think about what he just said. Yeah, were there things that were done wrong for the rioters? Absolutely. They turned around and repeated the lie that 5 police officers, Capitol police officers, were protecting the institution, and 5 gave their lives. Is a lie. They even put one in state in the rotunda, where presidents and heads of state and really long-serving government officials are placed upon their death. Not one of the 5 that died because of the riot. And has been perpetuated and said over and over and over and over and over so many times, it now becomes the truth. This is Soviet-style propaganda.
So instead, they lie about what happened that day, and they do it in the boldest possible ways, without shame and with maximum aggression. Here's Hakeem Jeffries, leader of the Democrats in the House, telling you that 5 police officers were killed on January 6th, when in fact the real total is 0.
We are gathered here to honor their memory and acknowledge with deep gratitude the tremendous bravery of...
I mean, look at Nancy Pelosi wiping her tears. Fake tears. These people have no scruples. Every single one of these people knows that this is a lie. Yet look at them. What do they call that? LARPing? Live action role play? It's disgusting. Disgusting. Wiping a tear. She should be ashamed. Look, it's hard for me to describe in the words how I really feel. This is disgusting.
As a result of the events on January 6th, the lives of 5 heroic officers were lost.
That's a lie. It's a lie. Look at them, eyes closed. It's just like, oh, what heroes. They saved the children from the burning building. It's a bunch of BS. BS. And millions have fallen for it because they've been told that over, over, and over.
5 heroic officers were lost, he said. It's almost impossible to believe that adults could stand behind him as he said that, because everyone in the picture you just saw knows that is not true. It's not a stilted interpretation of events. It's a flat-out lie. No police officers were killed on January 6th, period. Ashley Babbitt was killed on January 6th. But chances are your grandchildren will not know that, because history will likely record the lie you just heard as true, simply because it's been repeated so often. Everyone in authority has said the same thing in unison for 2 solid years. As our thoroughly dishonest Attorney General recently put it, quote, "We will never forget the 5 officers who responded selflessly on January 6th and who have since lost their lives."
Have since lost their lives. One had a stroke, one committed suicide. I forgot what the other 3 did. Had nothing to do with the riot. That lawyer-like talk. Have since lost their lives. So that means if one of the officers was in a traffic accident 4 days later and was killed, he gave his life for the protection of the institution and the Capitol. That's the lawyer-like weasel words they use. Let's listen on.
His boss, Joe Biden, repeated that lie today from the White House.
These people and the people representing those who couldn't be here because they gave their lives for this is incredibly consequential. And that's not political talk, that's historical fact.
That's historical fact, says Joe Biden, as he manufactures history, as he tells lies. They've been doing this, telling these same lies since the very first day, January 6th, 2021, almost like it was a coordinated operation. Remember when they told you that Officer Brian Sicknick, was beaten to death with a fire extinguisher?
Officer Sicknick died after being hit in the head with a fire extinguisher.
Sicknick died after being hit in the head with a fire extinguisher.
Officer Brian Sicknick died after being hit in the head with a fire extinguisher during the hours-long attack.
They beat a Capitol police officer to death with a fire extinguisher.
Officer Brian Sicknick died after being hit in the head with a fire extinguisher during the fight.
He died at the age of 42 after he was bludgeoned with a fire extinguisher.
That's not true. And in the end, thanks to the medical examiner in the District of Columbia, we learned the fact, which is that Brian Sicknick died of a stroke well after the January 6th protests. He was not beaten to death with a fire extinguisher. But that did not stop their lying or even slow them down. Joe.
So we're going to leave part one off at that. Normally I don't do two-parters as a rule, but there's so much information here I felt that it was necessary. So there it is, part one of what I call the January 6th lies. I know these videos are longer than normal, and this one's a two-parter, but there's so much information here I think they ought to get out. We'll see how this website handles this video and the algorithm. So part two coming out soon. Until next time, goodbye and good luck.